Then in 1962, 2nd of April, Nagas dispatched the first Alee command, or the foreign mission of the Naga nationalists led by General Mao and General Kaito, to East Pakistan to procure arms and military training. Then by 1962, 11th of April, the Nagaland Security Regulation Act is introduced, and by 21st of August 1962, Prime Minister of India Nehru introduced the bill in Indian Parliament for the formation of Nagaland state within Indian Union. Then by 4th of September 1962, a State of Nagaland Act is passed. Now in 1962, by the Indian Constitution 13th Amendment Act of 1962, India conferred statehood to Nagas with respect to the 16-point agreement in interest of the manipulated Naga opportunists. The state of Nagaland is arbitrarily carved out, excluding the major portion of Naga domains. Now if you look at the map, the Naga ancestral domain covers an area of about 1,20,000 square kilometer approx, whereas the Indian conferred statehood is only 16,579 square kilometer, which is only 1/6 of the total Naga area. So the fake arbitrary boundary created by India dividing the Nagas gives us the clear image of heartless Indians and is an act of total disrespect to the Naga people. And you will be surprised to know that the so-called international boundary that divides India and Myanmar, this stupid international boundary cuts right through the homes and villages of the Naga people. If India really did have concern for Nagas, then why not claim the Naga hills as part of India? But that real feeling of concern was not there. So the Naga hills was arbitrarily divided into two different nations without even consulting the people or taking account the concern of the people in the Naga hills. Another major problem was also perpetuated by dividing Nagas even within India itself. Placing the Nagas in different administration or state was done solely for suppressing the Nagas movement, and the boundary dispute between Nagas and Assam, Manipur or Arunachal is a creation of India. Otherwise, Nagas had no dispute, and the area of Naga ancestral domain is indisputable otherwise. As Moiva has also clearly stated that, I quote, "We do not want greater Nagaland, nor do we want smaller Nagaland. We just want what belongs to us." This is true, and so unification of Naga contiguous areas is also mentioned in several agreements made between government of India and the Nagas. But to this day, nothing is done by the government of India on this subject, and the issue is only getting more complicated, and I'm pretty sure India would love to see Northeast brothers fighting each other. Anyway, we will discuss this in more depth maybe in other lectures. So moving ahead, by 1963, 4th of December, Nagaland attains statehood in the tiny portion of the Naga hills with its first Indian puppet chief minister Pishilu Au and its first governor Vishnu Sahe. Then by 1964, the Naga opportunists, or the so-called Naga People's Convention, conducts the first general election in Nagaland under the tight security and surveillance of Indian armed forces. Then by 1964, 11th of Feb, the Indian puppet government or Nagaland Legislative Assembly is formed in Nagaland, and India has successfully set up the illegitimate federal government undermining the legitimate Naga central government or the Naga federal government. So as you can see from the image, so these are the signatories of the infamous 16-point agreement, and these are people who sold out the Naga people's right for their own selfish interests. And if you are a Naga and if you think that they have done the right thing, then you should probably build a momentum for these traitors. So this fallacious and treacherous 16-point agreement has nothing to do with the Naga National Movement, because this agreement was signed by few sections of self-interest Naga groups, and this group were also government servants of the Indian administration, whereas the main stakeholders or the true sons of the Naga soil was kept out of this agreement by the strict and heavy surveillance of Indian armed forces behind the shield of Indian black laws. This agreement was nothing but a bribe by government of India to conceal her crime against humanity, a crime against Nagas. And this agreement is not a solution to Indo-Naga political issue in any manner whatsoever, as it is actually a sellout of the Naga people's right by the Naga People's Convention. And the signatories of NPC have in fact committed treason by signing this treacherous agreement. And as stated by S.C. Chamir, I quote, "Naga sovereignty is a myth and statehood is the reality. If that is true, then the signatories or the Naga People's Convention have to give an answer for the death of thousands of innocent Nagas resisting Indian illegal occupation and upholding Naga people's right. And if the statehood within India is the reality or the solution, then the Indo-Naga political issue would have been dissolved by now, and the Naga society should be prospering leaps and bounds by now. But the Indian puppet government running the Nagas state of affairs, these self-interest groups having no vision, and their only modus operandi is to accumulate wealth and luxury for themselves. So looking at Nagaland infrastructure and degradation give us the clear image of this Indian puppet government. This agreement also gave birth to a whole new problem, that is boundary dispute, which was indisputable before this agreement. And the NPC or the Naga People's Convention has not only sold the Naga People's side, but also divided and fragmented the Nagas into pieces. And to the Naga people, the signatory of the 16-point agreement, they are nothing but a mere traders without the mandate of the Naga people. Now, if you look at the clause 2 of the 16-point agreement, the transfer of Nagaland from Ministry of Foreign Affairs to the Ministry of Home Affairs in 1972, is it unilaterally violated by Government of India without the consent of the Naga people? Or is it the state government has acted on their own? But this transfer wouldn't have been possible without the note of the state cabinet. So either the Government of India has unilaterally violated the 16-point agreement, or the state government has betrayed the Nagas. And it is clear that the agreement is not only a sellout of the Naga people's right, but also more of one-sided agreement that serves the interests of India. And very obvious, the state government, being the Indian puppet, is more likely to act in the interests of India rather than serving the interests of the Naga people. And clause is also delusional, as it safeguards only 4 specific parameters of Nagas' interests, and Nagas are highly vulnerable to subjugation in other areas. And clause 11 was the most important point for the Naga People's Convention in the agreement, and this was the main bait used by the Government of India to win over the sections of few self-interest Naga groups. Fisher was right when he said Nagas will never surrender in the battlefield, but many Nagas will fall when money is shoot through the barrel of guns. Now, clause 12 on consolidation of forest areas is a total failure. Nagas have also mentioned in the clause 6 of the 9-point agreement of June 1947, and the provision prescribing the procedure for transfer of areas is also mentioned in Article 3 and 4 of the Indian Constitution. But till today, India is doing just nothing on this subject. Neither the state government have any seriousness about it. And clause 13 on consolidation of contiguous Naga areas is only a showpiece in the 16-point agreement, and neither the Indian puppet government nor the Indian central government is doing anything about it, so which is also a failure. Now, clause 14 on the Naga regiment, formation of the Naga regiment. While Nagas already have or had Naga National Army serving the interests of the Naga people, there was no point on the part of Naga People's Convention to bless this demand for the formation of a Naga regiment in the Indian Army. Clause 14 is nothing but an indirect attempt by Naga People's Convention to kill our own Naga people by aligning themselves with the enemy. And clause 16 on inner line regulation is utterly ineffective. The commercial hub of Nagaland, that is Dimapur, is now a hub of illegal migrants from Bangladesh, and of course Indians living in Nagaland, they also fall on the same category because their Nagaland is not a part of India. Now, Naga people seem to be so much obsessed with Article 371A, but we Nagas actually don't need that kind of delusional, the so-called special profession, because we Nagas deserve a more better profession legislated by the true sons of the Naga soil. And there is no point of referring to Article 371A with respect to Naga people's right and protection, because that is already a treacherous profession, a sellout of Naga people's right by Naga People's Convention within the ambit of Indian Constitution. And this delusional Article 371A is just in paper. This doesn't really serve the Naga people's interest, because most of the Indian laws are bound to conflict Naga people's interests and bound to override. We have clearly seen this in several cases in which several laws superseded the Naga people's interests or Naga traditional system and institution. And these controversial cases are few examples. So the ultimate end of Article 371A is only to paralyze the Nagas within alien Indian laws and Indian system. And that delusional special profession is bound to fail, erode and fade away. And for sure, Nagas being governed and legislated by Indian puppet government, The total annihilation of Naga people is in fact not far from now if the delusioned and ignorant Naga population feels that statehood is the solution, which is really not. And to remember, Nagaland is not included in the 6th schedule of Indian Constitution because we Nagas are not mere tribals seeking for autonomy within Indian Union. Nagas are much more than tribals. The legendary Naga leaders like Fiso have stood his ground till his death for Naga people's rights and us a sovereign entity. In fact, Fiso gave his whole life upholding this very truth. So now the only one thing Nagas need is to uphold this very truth, and the younger generation should be playing the main role in upholding this truth because it is their future that needs to be considered and seriously taken into account before the Indian puppet government is completely intoxicated by Indian system. And Nagas should also know that democracy is a number game. The lone puppet Naga representative in the parliament is only a rubber stamp.